Welcome back, learners, to our interesting course based on the theme of Rudimentary Principles and Practices of Managerial Economics, Module 4, Lecture number 18, based on Law of Demand. In the last lecture, we have covered the basics of Law of Demand. We talked about demand and other aspects of demand. In this session, we'll be taking up three topics. The first topic will be exceptions to law of demand, movement along the demand curve, and shift in the demand curve. So, the first topic for today, that is exceptions to the law of demand. As we have discussed that there is inverse relation between price and quantity demanded in the concept of law of demand. But when we'll be talking of the exception of law of demand, we'll be finding that the inverse relationship is not being maintained in the case of exception to law of demand. So, as we know that there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded by keeping other things as constant, which we discussed in the last lecture. With increase in price, the demand for a commodity falls, whereas with reduction in price, the demand for commodity increases, as we have discussed in the law of demand. The demand curve slopes downwards from left to right as per law of demand. But there are certain exceptions to this law. When with rise in price, the demand for commodity increases. I am repeating, when with the rise in price, the demand for commodity increases, and with fall in price, the demand reduces or falls. This is case of exception to law of demand. In these extraordinary cases, the demand curve slopes upward from left to right, indicating the positive or direct relation between the price and quantity demanded. Whereas the law of demand states that there is an inverse relationship between the price and quantity demanded. So, Robert Giffen was the first person to expose this rare occurrence, which is known as Giffen paradox. And this is the actual exception of law of demand. Moving further, I have tried to show through a table the exception to law of demand. This table represents the direct relationship, as we have talked in this last slide, between the price and quantity demanded, which is an exception to law of demand. The price is gradually increasing from 1 rupee to 5 rupee, and the demand is also increasing from commodity 5 to 25. As you can see in the table, when the price is rupee 1, the demand is 5 units. When the price goes to 2 rupees, the demand also increases. When the price goes to 3 rupees, the demand goes to 15 units. When price goes to 4 rupees, the demand goes to 20 units, and when price goes to 5 rupees, the demand goes to 25 units. So, you can see that there is direct relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. So, this is an exception to law of demand, where there is direct relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. Now, I will try to show you the graphical representation of this exception to law of demand. On the x-axis, you must be able to see the x commodity is shown, whereas on the y-axis, the price is shown. With increase in price from rupees 1 to 5, with increase in price from 1 to 5, the quantity demanded is increasing from 5 to 25, where when all the points such as A, B, C, D and E are joined together, they give a demand curve DD sloping upward from left to right, indicating the positive relationship between the price and demand, which we have already discussed that in exception to law of demand, there will be direct relation between the price and the quantity demanded. If the price will rise, the quantity demanded will rise. On the contrary, when the price will fall, the quantity demanded will fall. That is against law of demand, which shows inverse relation between the price and the quantity demanded. So again, I'm repeating, in the diagram we are able to see that gradually as the price is increasing, the demand is also increasing in the same direction. There is no inverse relationship between the demand and the price, but there is direct relation between both of them. Moving further, the reasons for exception to law of demand. The upward sloping demand curves are unusual and quite contradictory to the law of demand, as they represent the phenomena that more will be demanded at higher prices and vice versa. There are few such exceptional cases which are as follows, which we are going to discuss. The first is Giffen paradox. This is applicable in case of certain inferior goods known as Giffen goods. When the price of the inferior goods fall, thereby increasing the real income of the consumer, that forces them to reduce the demand for inferior goods. Due to negative income effect, the preference for superior goods increases. So Giffen paradox, when the price falls, the demand for that product also falls. This exception is applicable only when consumer spends majority of their income on inferior commodities. Reduction in price of given goods brings fall in demand for given goods, that is inferior goods, and therefore the law of demand does not apply on this case, that is of Giffen paradox. The next point, that is war or emergency. During the period of war, if there is fear of shortage, people may start buying or hoarding or building stocks even at higher prices. And in this situation, the law of demand will not apply, especially in the cases of war, emergency, or any extraordinary conditions. The people are ready to purchase product at higher prices. The third is the Veblen goods or the articles of snob appeal. Veblen goods are basically luxurious goods whose quantity demand increases with increase in price, and this is case of luxury goods. In other words, people may desire goods precisely because they are expensive and serve as status symbol. That is very important. These goods are kind of status symbol. For example, luxury cars, designer clothes, jewelries may see an increase in demand as their prices increases, as consumer associate higher prices with prestige. This Veblen goods talks about luxury goods, and as the price of these goods increase, the demand also increases. The next is necessity. It is for those goods that are considered essential or necessary. Demand may remain relatively constant or even increase at the time of price rise. This is because the consumer need these goods regardless of price changes, and they may be willing to allocate a higher portion of their budget to ensure access to these necessities like food, medicine, housing. For example, if the price of insulin rises, diabetic patient will still use it, buy it, because they need it for survival. Especially when the COVID was there, people were ready to spend n number of amount for medicines, for injections. So such is case of necessity. Ignorance of the consumer regarding quality-price relationship. Sometimes consumer may incorrectly assume that higher prices always respond to higher quality, which means sometimes consumers have perception that if the prices of the goods are higher, the quality will be supreme or better. In such case, they may be willing to buy more of a good as the price increases, believing it to be of superior quality. This can lead to an upward sloping demand curve for certain goods where consumers perceive a positive relation between the price and the quality. For example, some people might buy more expensive watches, assuming these are of better quality, even if the cheaper ones serve the same purpose, which means sometimes the people have perception if they purchase goods of higher prices, the quality is better. So this is an exception to law of demand. In the next point, which talks about the brand loyalty. Some consumers may be loyal to specific brands or have a preference for goods associated with a certain status or image. In such cases, they may be willing to pay higher prices for those goods regardless of changes in their income or availability of substitutes. For example, people might buy expensive smartphone of a particular brand especially because they are loyal to it. Even if the other brand offer similar features for less price, still they will go for that specific brand, just being brand conscious or being loyal to that specific product. The next point talks about excessive small commodities. In the case of very inexpensive goods such as snacks, small items like matchbox, consumers may not pay much attention to the prices of the changes. They may continue to purchase these goods in similar quantities regardless of price fluctuations, leading to an upward sloping demand curve in certain situations. For example, if the price of pack of gum goes to a little, most people won't even notice or care and will still buy it. So this is an example of small commodities, prices which are not very expensive, so people do not pay much attention and consecutively buy more of it as per their requirement. The next point is expectation or possibility of price change. If consumers anticipate future price increase, they may buy more of a good now to avoid paying higher prices later. For example, if there are rumors that after 5 days there is going to be a hike in petrol prices, the people might be ready to purchase more petrol at higher prices to pass on the risk of the upcoming period. So conversely, if they expect prices to decrease in the future, they may delay their purchase, leading to fluctuations in demand that do not follow the typical inverse relation between the price and quantity demanded. For example, if people hear that the price of gas will go up tomorrow, they'll probably fill their tanks today to save money. So this is another example related to exception to law of demand. Now we are moving to the next topic, that is related to movement along the demand curve. The movement along the demand curve means the consumer is moving in the same demand curve due to change in its own price. The very important aspect in this movement along demand curve which needs to be remembered is that we are talking of price here, thereby increasing or decreasing the demand for the commodity by keeping other things as constant, that is ceteris paribus. It means demand is the function of price only in moving along the demand curve. So it can be represented as demand for X commodity is function of price of X commodity, and the movement along the demand curve can be divided into extension of demand and contraction of demand, which we are going to discuss. The extension of demand means increasing the demand for the commodity through reduction in its own price. The price is the most important factor here by keeping other things as constant. The curve moves from higher point to lower point, which we will be discussing in the upcoming diagram. Lower point along with the same demand curve is known as extension of demand. There is no new formation of the demand curve under it. If you have a look on the table, representation of extension of demand, when the price was 5 rupees, the demand was 10 units. When the price came to 4 rupees, the demand went to 20 units. When the price was 3 rupees, the demand went to 30 units. When the price was 2 rupees, the demand went to 40 units. And when the price came to 1 unit, the demand was of 50 units. So this represents the extension of demand. This is which you are able to see is the diagrammatic representation of extension of demand, that as the table has shown, that as the price is falling, the quantity demanded is increasing. As the price is falling, the quantity demanded is increasing. So it is a case of extension of demand from the point A to E. On the y-axis, you are able to see the price of the commodity, and on the x-axis, you are able to see the commodity demanded. So the table shows the relation between the price and quantity demanded by keeping other things as constant. As the price is reducing from rupees 5 to rupees 1, the quantity demanded is increasing from 10 units to 50. The above graph measures demand for X commodity on X axis and price of X commodity on Y axis. When all the points A, B, C, D and E are joined together, it gives rise to demand curve DD sloping downwards from left to right. That is important, indicating inverse relation between the demand and price. When the consumer moves from point A, the initiation point, to the point E, the higher point to the lower point on the same demand curve, that demand curve is termed as extension of demand curve. I hope it must be clear to all the learners. Now we'll be talking the other half of it. Contraction of demand means decreasing the demand for the commodity through increment in its own price by keeping the other things as constant. This is almost the inverse of the previous slide. The consumer moves from lower point to upper point along the same demand curve and is known as contraction of demand. There is no new formation of the demand curve under it. If you are able to see the table, the tabular representation of contraction of demand, the price of X commodity and the quantity demanded of X commodity. As the price is increasing from 1 rupee to 5 rupee, the demand is gradually decreasing. When the price was 1 rupee, the demand was 50 units. When the price is 2 rupee, the demand is 40 units. When the price is 3 rupees, the demand is 30 units. When the price is 4 units, the demand is 20 units. And when the price is 5 rupees, the demand is 10 units, keeping other things as constant. Now I am trying to show you the diagrammatic representation of contraction of demand. On the x-axis, you are able to see the demand for the commodity, and on the y-axis, you are able to see the price of the commodity. The diagrammatic representation of contraction of demand, where you are able to see on the x-axis the demand for X commodity and on the y-axis the price of the X commodity. And as per the table, you are able to see when the price is increasing, the quantity demanded is also decreasing. The above table shows the relation between the price and the quantity demanded by keeping other things as constant. And as the price of X commodity is increasing from 1 rupee to 5 rupee, the quantity demanded is reducing from 50 to 10, as you are able to see in the diagram. The above graph measures demand for X commodity on x-axis and price of X commodity on y-axis. As I have already told you, when all the points from A, B, C, D, E are joined together, it gives rise to demand curve DD sloping downwards from left to right, indicating inverse relation between demand and price. When the consumer moves from point A, lower point, towards point E, higher point on the demand curve is known as contraction of demand curve, which again I am showing you on the slide. This is the contraction of demand curve. Moving further, the shift in the demand curve. Shift in the demand curve means the consumer moves to a new demand curve due to change in other factors. This is very important. Here we will be talking about other factors, not price, such as price of related goods, taste, preference, income. By keeping price as constant, it means demand is the function of the other factor and not the price. This is very important, not the price, that shift the consumer towards the formation of new demand curve. So demand for X commodity is function of price of related commodity, income of the consumer, taste and preferences, population, government policies. The shift in the demand curve can be represented in decrease in demand or increase in the demand, which we are going to discuss. The increase in demand. The increase in demand means when there is more demand even at the same price of the commodity. It is the other factors such as income of the consumer, taste, price of related goods, etc., which are responsible, that affects the demand for the commodity by keeping price as constant. The important thing here is that price has been kept constant. The demand curve moves towards right, indicating increase in demand. As you can see in the table, that the price of X commodity has been kept constant, that is 5 rupees in all the cases, but the quantity demanded of X commodity is moving from 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40 and 40 to 50. Price remain constant. Other factors such as income, this is important, taste, price of related goods and etc. change here, but the price here is always constant. It does not move. So the same I have tried to show through diagrammatic representation, that is increase in demand. As you are able to see, on the x-axis the demand has been shown, on the y-axis the price has been shown, and the price is constant, that is 5 rupees, but you can see in the diagram the demand is changing. The reason for the demand change is here. The other factors might be taste, change in taste, change in preference of the consumer, or any other related factor. The above table shows the relation between the other factors, the most important thing, and quantity demanded by keeping price as constant. The price of the commodity remains constant at rupees 5, but the demand for commodity is increasing from 10 to 50 as shown here. The demand is increasing, price has been kept constant. The above graph measures demand for commodity on x-axis and price of commodity on y-axis. When the price of commodity is rupees 5, the quantity demanded is 10, and the consumer is at original demand curve DD, which we have shown you here, the original demand curve DD. If the same price rupees 5, the quantity demand increases to 50 due to other factors, the consumer shift towards the right of the demand curve DD, forming altogether a new demand curve, that is D1. New demand curve D1 indicates that the price being same, the demand for the commodity increased from 10 to 50. As you are able to see in this diagram, the demand has increased from 10 to 50, but the price has been kept constant. The curve has shifted from DD to DD1. Now the next topic, the decrease in demand. The decrease in demand when there is less demand even at the same prices of the commodity. It is the other factors such as income of consumer, taste, price of related goods that affect the demand for the commodity by keeping again the price as constant. The price is not changing here, price has been kept constant, but other factors are moving here, are changing here. The demand curve moves towards left, indicating decrease in demand. As you are able to see in the table, the price have been kept constant, 5 rupees. The other factors such as income, taste, price of related goods, etc. are changing. So the quantity demanded is also changing from 50 to 40, 40 to 30, 30 to 20 and 20 to 10. So the demand is gradually decreasing. So this represents the decrease in demand, keeping the price constant. The same has been shown through diagrammatic representation of decrease in demand. On the x-axis we have tried to show the demand, and on the y-axis we have shown the price. As you can see in the diagram, the quantity demanded is gradually decreasing from 50 units to 10 units. The explanation, the above table shows the relation between the other factors and quantity demanded by keeping price again as constant. The price of the commodity is kept constant at rupees 5, but the demand for the commodity is gradually decreasing from 50 to 10, as I have already shown you. The above graph measures demand for a commodity on x-axis and price on y-axis. When the price of the consumer commodity is rupees 5, the quantity demanded is 50, and the consumer is at the original demand curve DD. If at the same price the quantity demand decreases to 10 due to other factors which we have talked about, keeping the price constant, the consumer shifts towards the left of the original demand curve DD, forming altogether a new demand curve, that is D1 D1, which is shown here, D1 D1. From DD to it is moving to D1 D1. New demand curve D1 D1 indicates that the price being same or constant, the demand for commodity decreases from 50 to 10. So this was the brief topic which I wanted to discuss in this session. The topic which we have discussed in this session, I'll just provide a quick gist of it. We tried to cover the exceptions to law of demand, the movement along the demand curve, and the shift in the demand curve. I tried to explain you the meaning of exception to law of demand, how it functions with the table. I tried to show you a graphical representation to it. I explained you the reasons for exception to law of demand, that is given paradox, war or emergency, Veblen goods, necessity, ignorance of the consumer regarding price, quality relationship, brand loyalty, excessive small commodities, expectation of possibility of price change. Then I tried to discuss with you movement along the demand curve, in which I mentioned the extension of demand as well as the contraction of demand. I showed you a table of it, the diagrammatic representation of it, the explanation. Then we talked of contraction of demand, the diagrammatic representation of it, the explanation. Then we talked about the shift in the demand curve, and I showed you the reasons for it, and it is further divided into decrease in demand as well as increase in demand. I showed you a table of it, increase in demand, diagrammatic representation of it, explanation, then decrease in demand, the table, the explanation. So in this session, I tried to provide you more information regarding the demand topic of managerial economics. I hope this session will be of utility for all the learners, and hope to catch up in the upcoming sessions. Thank you.